Welcome to Actions and Limits. My name is Justin Atherton. I'm the Peak Performance Consultant for Confidence Unchained. With me as always is Paul Fortune. Paul is a mindset coach and the founder of A Call to Action. And together, we make Actions and Limits. Welcome to the show, the podcast where we talk about the actions we can take and the limits we create. Another week, Paul, another great guest coming on. Bob Wheeler is here on the show. I'm excited to have him come out, man. For everyone listening, make sure you don't miss a single interview. Subscribe to the show on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at Actions and Limits to make sure you're updated on all our upcoming content and interviews. Bob Wheeler, he's a money guy. He's a CFO of the Comedy Club out in LA, man. I'm excited to the world famous Comedy Store, I should say. I misspoke. I'm excited to have him come out. I know we've been checking out his website. He talks a lot about relationship with money, and I don't think that's a topic that people talk about very much. Thinking about having a relationship with money. What do you think, man?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't. And you think about it, what people argue about the most: money. Your upbringing, you learn a certain way of saving or spending money, and it stays with you for a long time unless you have a good coach or mentor that might break that for you, so that going forward you have a more healthier relationship with money. So I think it's a very important topic that we discuss, because especially with these college kids coming out with so much debt. And, sometimes the colleges might present something to them that might not be exactly correct, especially, you have these art majors, going to USC, spending $100,000 a year on tuition. We got to kind of look at these things. Don't get me wrong, USC is a great school. And if you want to go to USC, go to USC. But, you want to evaluate your situation and make sure that this is the right spot for you. Because sometimes, like an art major, maybe you don't need to go to a college like that. Maybe you can go to, art school somewhere else, or go out and get a mentor or something like that. So a lot of stuff that we can discuss with Bob on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of psychology behind it. How much you spend for something, can create value just by the price tag on it. If it's 50 cents or $50, you're like, oh, the $50 one has to be way better just because of the price tag on it. So I'm sure he deals with a lot of psychology there. So I think it's going to be an interesting conversation, and hopefully it brings some things up. And I expect to learn something from what Bob's going to be talking about. So let's go ahead and bring him out. So Bob Wheeler is a financial expert and motivator, book author, and founder of The Money Nerve. Bob Wheeler helps listeners conquer their money shame and avoid making poor financial decisions by teaching how emotions can dictate our choices. As a man of true integrity with infectious energy, Bob's crusade for personal growth is cross-pollinated with his accounting practice to create a new approach to personal finances. His passion is to help others gain insights about how their emotions trigger financial decisions. Combining finances with behaviors, Bob explores his personal concept of creating a healthy relationship with money in his recent book, The Money Nerve. And while strengthening his accounting practice, Bob has simultaneously pursued his love of satire and ventured into the realm of stand-up comedy. And for 30 years helping clients, Bob has distilled a concoction of warmth, humor, information, motivation, and budgeting directives that he offers to anyone with financial concerns. And he is also currently the CFO for the world famous Comedy Store. All right, everyone, welcome Bob Wheeler to the show. Bob, so glad to have you here on the Actions and Limits podcast, man.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we really like your bio. Paul and I were checking out your stuff. I know that you have a book that came out recently, right? Is that your main focus of what's going on now? The money nerve?
The money nerve. Well, I have many focuses, but
Sure.
yes, the money nerve, mastering the emotions of money. That's sort of where I like to land, even with all the other stuff that I do. I'm CFO of the world famous Comedy Store. I've got my own CPA practice. I brought in a partner. But all of that goes back to money and emotions. And so that's where I'm spending a lot of time.
Yeah, I saw that on your website. I was really interested about that. I know I've had some conversations with some friends of mine about that aspect, about the emotions that come up around money and how to handle those. So I'm interested to hear your insight on that, man, the emotions that come up around money, because I think we all deal with that on some level.
Well, what's interesting to me is a lot of people think that money is very black and white. It's very 1 + 1 is 2, and don't factor in the fact that every day we're making financial decisions. Do I bring my lunch, or do I eat with my friends so I look cool? Do I buy a fancy car, or do I just buy something that gets me where I'm going? Or do I just take the bus? And so there's all these decisions we're making all the time. And part of it's, how am I presenting? What are people thinking? Do I deserve this? There's just so many things that go on internally. And so the more that we can start to get conscious of that, the more we can start to realize, oh yeah, that's that old belief that's coming up trying to take me out.
Bob, as a child, did your family have money problems, or how did this all start? Because this is kind of an interesting field to be in. So there's got to be a backstory to this.
Well, fortunately, my family didn't have a lot of money, so there were no problems. No, it's, here's the thing. Growing up, for me, I was always told I needed to be very successful. When my parents got divorced, my mom said, you need to be really successful so that your 4 siblings and I can have the lifestyle we deserve. And I said, yeah, no, I'm out. I was also taught that I am my accomplishments. So I only have value if I'm like making A's, hitting all the marks, making incredible travels, doing all the good things that make me interesting versus just, hey, you're a nice person. So a lot of that was driving me. And, my grandparents used money to manipulate us. Hey, if we give you $100, will you like us better than your other grandparents? You bet. Love you. And so there was a lot of game playing around money and being loved. And I just started to become aware of that. And, not initially, but as I got older and started to realize how my own beliefs were limiting.
So it seems like that started off like with an unhealthy relationship with money. And
Absolutely.
and I can see a lot of things coming up, like growing up myself, or thinking about like how people deal with money like that. So what are your thoughts on how to create that healthy relationship, or remove those stigma that we create, or that our families and friends create for us?
Well, the first thing is you have to be willing to look at it, be uncomfortable, and be willing to do a little bit of self-excavation. And sometimes when people come to me, I'll say, are you willing to look at some of this stuff? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, we're done. Can't help you. You do have to start to look at that stuff and start to look at, what did my parents say about money? What did my grandparents tell me about money? Did I grow up in a religious culture that shamed me about my money, or encouraged me to hold on to my money? If I'm of a particular ethnicity, was there something around money from that group of people that's like, oh, that's our stereotypical approach to money? And then start to look at that. Where did I fit in school? Was I the rich kid? Was I the poor kid on free lunch program? Did I wear the nice clothes? Did I wear hand-me-downs? And start to sort of look at all that and see how that started to unconsciously influence the way that you made money decisions going forward.
Did you have a background in financial advising?
So I'm a CPA, and I actually was going to law school, and then I decided I didn't like any of the lawyers that I was meeting. I actually took accounting as just to keep my grade point average up, like everybody. And what happened?
I didn't take accounting to keep my GPA up. I'll tell you that, right?
Accounting and Latin; those are the easy courses. But so I just had a natural affinity for numbers, even though it wasn't something I wanted to go into. And as I was doing tax planning and tax meetings, they started turning into therapy sessions because I had a lot of experience at therapy sessions. And so that got me really interested. And then I got into somatic therapy work, body work. And so I'm certified in that as well. So I just sort of combined the two naturally, organically.
I'm not familiar with that, the somatic body work. What is that?
So it's, so traditional therapy is couch therapy. I sit on a couch, I tell you my sad story, and you charge me a lot of money.
Sure.
And in somatic work, like John Parakis, Lohan, all these people, there's a belief that we store a lot of our trauma and our history in our bodies. And so what we try to do is get people to release energy, either through shaking or hitting, or just trying to get the body to relax so that we can then go in and start to let things come forth. Just like when an animal in the wild gets traumatized, they shake, and they're just like, they're letting out trauma.
Sure.
And so it's the same concept that we're letting the energy of money or the energy of self-awareness or self-goodness, all of that sort of going through the body. And it's actually starting to pick up. A lot of therapists are starting to bring in the body somatic component.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
So what would you tell a college graduate with, $50,000 worth of debt, and trying to find their first job? What key factors can you tell them?
Well, the first thing I'm going to want to tell them is to try and live within your means. Don't go out and take the 20 credit cards they offer you the minute you walk out the door. And actually, when you start getting those first paychecks, sit down and live on a budget as if you were still in college, and try to put some of that money away. And then really focus on, if they've got $50,000 worth of student loan debt, I would really encourage them to make that go away as quick as possible, because otherwise it will live forever. And, I think even going into college, asking people, what is your intention with this degree? Can I get this at a community college and not pay $100,000? If I want to be an artist or I want to be a singer, do I really need to go to Yale? So to really get clear about, what's my point in going to college? Is it to make mom and dad happy? Is it really actually because I need the skill set?
That's really interesting. And that's got to be a tough thing to break, because you see that with a lot of younger people that graduate college. There's a saying, like, I live in Texas, and up in Dallas, they call them the $30,000 millionaires, because
Right.
they're making 30,000, but they're going around in nice cars, and they're going to the clubs every weekend, and they're being flashy, but they go home and they're eating ramen soup every night because they can't afford that lifestyle. So how do you break into that mindset, especially for the younger generation? Like, hey, dummy, stop spending all your money on silly stuff, and save some money.
Well, it's hard because social media, advertise, everybody tells you got to have it now.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't wait for it. Like, you deserve it. Pay later. It doesn't matter. Live in the moment. And so we have that pressure coming at us, right?
Sure.
Unfortunately, it starts earlier. There was a great study called the Stanford Marshmallow study. And in it, they worked with kids and said, we'll give you a marshmallow. And if you don't eat it for 30 minutes, we'll give you another marshmallow. But if you want to eat it, that's cool. And so what they did was they studied these kids through their adult lives. And what they discovered is the kids that could hold on to eating the marshmallow later ended up having a lot of financial success much later on. And
I'm literally thinking about like that with my daughter. Like I'm like, how could I implement that? Like, how could I put that in with my daughter? That's so interesting, Bob.
Yeah. So I think we have to learn to get back to delayed gratification, that I don't have to have it right now, and that we need to learn to live within our means. And some of that might even be just by learning to change our words. I hear so many young people say, I have to have the newest phone, and I can't live without the fanciest car. And the truth is, I want it, I long for it, but it doesn't keep me alive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that whole difference between actually needing something and wanting something. And sometimes we tend to merge those words together and saying, if I want it, then really I need it. But no, that's a very interesting concept to start young. The closest thing I can say I do with my daughter is when we're at the store and she's asking me for something, because she's done a lemonade stand, so she has a little bit of her own money that she's made. She'll ask me for it, and I'll be like, well, I'm not willing to buy that, but if you want to spend your money on it, you can. And she'll look at the price tag and go, oh, that's $9. That's expensive. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, I don't need it.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. And I think most people don't have these conversations with their kids. Like one of the things that I suggest to parents is to get a glass jar instead of a ceramic piggy bank that you can't see through.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you go to the store, you negotiate with your kids. Do you want to take some money out of the piggy bank, out of the mason jar? No. Or, I'll pay half, you pay half. But so that they start to understand that there's an impact of spending that money, that it's going to drain, it's going to drain our piggy bank.
It definitely makes a difference. And I could tell she comes to the realization, I don't need that. I just want it. It changes her mindset. So, so hopefully as she grows up, then, she can be more financially stable. But
she can get that second marshmallow, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
She hangs on to her marshmallows.
It's nice when you have two.
So is that something that we need to implement into the schools, or how do we start that early? I mean, you can say it's on the parents, because everything really is, but how do you see implementing that in the younger generations to create a better relationship with wealth?
Well, certainly I believe that there should be basic teachings in schools, even in elementary school, junior high, and in high schools, to start to help people really get a better understanding of that. And like, even if it's the basic stuff, I know I've read that like in Japan, they do visual teaching. So instead of just telling you 2 + 2 is 4, they'll have 2 apples and 2 oranges. And how many pieces of fruit do I have? And so our brain can go, oh, I see it.
Yeah.
And I think if we were to start having these conversations, giving the kids Monopoly money and making them pay a little bit of rent, or really starting to understand that, like, it's not all free.
Sure. Yeah. I agree. I think, somewhere in the schools it should be implemented. Paul, what do you think? I don't remember much other than like how to balance a checkbook. There was not a lot of, like,
I don't remember anything. I remember going to college thinking, and this is the funniest thing. When I went to college, I thought to myself, by the time I get my bachelor's degree, I'm going to be a billionaire. I really thought that. I really thought that. And once I got into the real world and got a real job, I was blown away how hard it really was.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I sort of thought that too. Oh, I'm just going to immediately start making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. It's just going to roll.
Oh man, that's pretty crazy, man. But Paul and I were both curious too, like with the comedy store, like how do you work that into your business? Like, I can tell you have a good sense of humor, but how do you work that in with your clients? Like how does that come across, man? Or how'd you get into that venture?
Well, so I did stand up for many years, and when I was first doing stand up, I got a call from Mitzi, who was like, it's Mitzi Shore, you got to help us out. I heard you're a CPA. And I'm like, no, I want to do comedy. I don't want to do numbers. I've been trying to get out of that forever. And, but she was great because she really wanted me to, help the club, and all my friends and I were performing. So it was important that the club stay open, but she also, she really nurtured my creative side, that it was like, it's okay to go up and do that stuff. Cause I'm very left brain, right brain. And I get bored easy. So it's like, I got to have something to do. And comedy was just one of those things that for me was awesome, but it also gave me a unique perspective, because when we're making business decisions, I'm able to also look at it from a comics point of view and say, yeah, that sounds great if you're just looking at it very, analytically, but the Comedy Store is this magical artist colony. And wait a minute, we're going to lose something there if we don't think about these other components.
What era are we talking about that you were at the Comedy Store?
I started there in 1995.
Oh, so you were probably doing sets with Pauly Shore then, right? Pauly Shore was probably there doing sets, eh?
Well, he started a little bit younger than me, because he started out with MTV. But I did a few shows where I was bringing up Sarah Silverman and stuff, because she was still doing open mic, and Sebastian and a lot of those folks.
So how is so you're currently still the CFO, correct?
I'm currently still the CFO at the Comedy Store. Yes.
Okay. How so? I got to ask. I know we're getting a little bit off topic here, but how has COVID been for business or comedy, or how's that going?
Horrific.
Yeah.
Horrible. It's the worst ever. It's tough for people that do live performing, music, comics, and it also takes an emotional toll on a lot of these comics that can already be dark, that are already coming from a place that's very, is that comedy or is that like tragedy or
your real life story?
Real life story is like, haha, not. And so yeah, it's been really hard. I mean, the Comedy Store, we were just making record income. It was so popular. Joe Rogan, Phil in the House, and just so many other people, Sebastian, and just so many people, Whitney Cummings.
Have you guys?
So what would you recommend comedians doing right now? Like up and coming comedians that are trying to get through this COVID, how are they going to get noticed by people, that they want to break into the Comedy Store and other comedy stores around the nation?
Well, they should be writing. There's lots of ways to go. I mean, there's Zoom comedy. There are ways to just like videotape sketches. You can put that on Maestro or U42 or Facebook and just keep the creative juices flowing. And like a lot of people, I think right now are frozen with like, oh my God. But if you can get out of that mindset and start saying, wait a minute, I've got all this extra time. What can I start doing that I've said I wanted to do? I wanted to write a book. I want to write a screenplay. I want to write a song. So, like, start doing it, because like this is time that you're not going to get back when things get back to normal.
Yeah, normal, whatever
that is.
Well, yeah, I was curious if there was some kind of like Zoom comedy going on, because I think, I mean, myself, I would love to tune into something like that and be like, hey, I can do a comedy show or listen to a comedy show, and it's technically still live, right? They're doing the live event. So is that something you see a lot of, or is that had a good,
we see
like,
some,
outpouring?
Personally, I find it incredibly painful.
Because you can't hear the audience, right?
You
so you're
can't
not
hear the
feedback.
audience. And, God bless comics, but sometimes they just, they hear applause that isn't there. And nobody else is laughing, but they're tearing it up. And so not always.
That's fun. Well,
did you want to do your own set there, Justin, on Zoom?
Oh no, I'm not the funny guy. I would love to
come to the stage.
I'm the guy. I like to sit in the front row and get made fun of. That's me.
Oh, okay.
I'm
there
like, hey, pick on me. I'm okay with that.
That's cool.
So, I imagine that you had to kind of use some of your own insight through this process and your relationship with money to work through this tough time, with your business and everything. So what have you seen come up for you through this process in this pandemic?
Well, initially I think there's a little bit of concern. I won't say panic, but concern of like, wow, if everything starts shutting down, can my clients afford to pay me? Although death and taxes, so I'm pretty safe at some point. They're going to have to come to me. But yeah, I think there was a sense of, this is a little concerning. I told my business partner, you know what? We need to get caught up on any past billing. Let's get all the retainers collected for the coming year. And we just like jumped in and collected $200,000 up front.
Okay. Just
so that when everything started falling apart, we already had everybody's money versus in the middle of it. Yeah, I don't have any money, Bob, and I can't eat. Feed your kid, I guess. But so we really tried to be really proactive and get really conservative in our spending and just really looking at everything and just pulling things in and hunkering down a little bit.
Yeah, that had to be pretty helpful to have that insight yourself and just go, hey, let's crunch the numbers real quick. Let's not, be hopeful with it. Hey, let's prepare. So I like that aspect of it. So that's gotta have helped, through this process.
Absolutely. And we knew that a lot of clients would be struggling. So we've discounted people. We've put people on payment plans. Like we're in it with them. I mean, our clients are relationships. I don't look at them as tax returns, or I don't look at them. It's relationships. And so we want to nurture them because, a lot of my clients have been with me 15, 20 years. And I like that.
Yeah.
What message have you been given to your clients to give them some hope?
Well, I just keep telling people that, this too shall pass, right? We're just in a roller coaster right now. This year is really bad. Next year might even be worse. So just sort of wherever you've got an ability to grab cash, grab it. If you can get an SBA loan, grab it. You can always pay it back. But like right now is the time to just sort of cash is king and sort of bring it close until we sort of ride out the storm.
So is that something you would tell to, the average person out there that, is having this, maybe they're panicking about money right now and maybe lost their job? Is it just, keep everything close and just cut everything off? Or where's that fine line of like not living your life at all and being fiscally responsible?
Yeah. I mean, certainly I wouldn't say, starve yourself, never eat, don't pay your rent. Like, survival mode, but look at really, do I need all the cable stations? Am I, can I put my gym membership on hold because nobody can go to the gym? Just start to look at look at all those automatic payments that are coming out of your bank account that you haven't paid attention to because money was rolling in. And now it might be time to go, oh yeah, I can't believe I'm still letting that get charged to my account. And so it's a great time to just sort of self-reflect and just do a little, self-checking on where the money's going. But I don't think that means starve yourself. You still want to have a little bit of fun. It just might be that instead of getting a massage once a week, maybe it's going to be once a month, or you're just going to scale it back.
I realize you don't have a crystal ball, but what's your projections? I know you said that 2021 doesn't sound very good. Mm-hmm. Where's your projections where things are going to be turning around?
Well, so, I think a lot of people, everything's polarized right now. So, but regardless of who is president in January, it's not going to be a quick fix. Things are not just going to be immediately, there's a vaccine and everybody's got extra money in the bank and everybody's back to making record income like never before. That's just not going to happen. And so I think we might see a housing correction. I think there's going to be a lot of, this year there's been a lot of printed money and everybody's been getting PPP money or unemployment plus 600 SBA loans. That's not going to be available next year. Mm-hmm. And I know at least in California or Los Angeles, we're not going to see a lot of these clubs really starting hitting capacity until maybe September, October, November, even if it opens up in July. People are still a little nervous. Some aren't, but then the ones that are not going to go eat at restaurants. They're not going to go out in public. They're not going to go shopping at the mall. And so I think really we're not going to see anything really turning around until probably maybe the middle of 2022. Mm. I mean, this is not a 5-minute we'll get over it.
Yeah, I agree.
I wish.
And maybe some people are hopeful that, after the election that all of a sudden there's going to be a switch, that it'll be fixed. But I think you have a realistic view there that it's going to take a while. And depending on where you're at, because Paul is out there in Los Angeles and I'm out here in Texas and things are a lot more open out here. People will be able to eat inside restaurants. So the States makes a big difference too on where everything is at. So
absolutely.
It's definitely a shift, but
sure.
Definitely a lot of great insight. And so you work with clients one-on-one, like on this idea, like what is your methodology when you work with your clients one-on-one to get them in this healthy relationship with money?
So I do one-on-one coaching with people and financial therapy, as some people call it. Mm-hmm. I also do a lot of workshop group work. And the reason I like working with groups is because what happens is when people start hearing other people also struggle with their money, or that, oh my God, you had a bankruptcy too, or, oh wait, you don't do everything perfectly. And there's like a relief. And the biggest thing I find is that people think that they're all alone and that their financial shame is the only financial shame that exists because everybody else presents so well. And I think once people start to realize, oh man, I'm actually better off than those other people, I could go home and feel good about myself. Mm-hmm. It really starts to shift for people. So for me, being in group, I get to see people be their real selves, and they get called out by other people when they're trying to, oh yeah, you talk to some people and like, oh, I've been making investments since I was 3, man. I never missed a beat. Oh, really? Because I've screwed up a whole lot. I've made a lot of mistakes. Oh yeah, not me. So when I do group work, it gives people an opportunity. Plus I get people to share their financial stories. What was their experience growing up? Were they the rich kid? Were they the poor kid?
Sure.
Did their parents have a certain belief system? Was money used as a way to manipulate or prove that there was love? And so when people start getting into that, they also start discovering that money is tied to self-worth, boundaries, sexuality, parents. And all of a sudden they're like, oh man, I thought we were just talking about money. So I think it's a doorway into a lot of other aspects of our emotional health.
And I would imagine that other people have solutions for other people to go, oh man, I went through that problem. This is what I did. And that has that dialogue too. So it's not you just giving the solutions. Other people are too.
Absolutely. It's funny, when I did my first workshop, I had like 30 people and I was like, hey, everybody, let's share our most personal stuff. And everybody's like, yeah, we're not. Yeah, no. So then I realized that if I worked in groups of 3, that people started sharing. And then as we got into the bigger groups, people felt like they had their wingmen, right? And so I really like that idea of there's somebody on my right and there's somebody on my left that I can reach out to. And together we can think outside the box. Together we can come up with, I might not have an idea, but you might have an idea or you might have an experience. And between the 3 of us, we can come up with some really amazing solutions.
Yeah, there's a lot of power in group sessions like that. And I think that there's a lot of research to back it as well. Even, whether it's money or whatever the topic is, right? Having those group experiences and sharing and not being the smartest guy in the room and being like, hey, like what's your insight for this? This is what I'm sharing. And from what I've seen too, is sometimes when people sharing a bad story, it's like, oh, you think that's bad? I did this. And so it's almost like they're sharing worse stuff.
Right.
Like, hold my beer. I got a worse story to tell you.
Yeah.
It's like, so I think it's definitely a good way to get people interactive because the one-on-one, I know Paul and I have experience with that. Like sometimes it can take a little while to build that trust one-on-one to be able to share. So I think definitely those group settings are definitely effective. So I can see how that would benefit you.
Well, and it gets emotional sometimes. So sometimes people are surprised. They're crying or they get really angry or whatever it might be. And then being with a group of people that are all holding space for that, there gets to be a little bit of healing and some self-forgiveness on some bad financial choices that we've made.
Yeah, have that support group, built in there with and go, hey, we've been there, we've dealt that, or pushed through the harder times. So I can definitely see how that could be a benefit. So what is the best way for our audience to check you out, find your content, or if they want to reach out to work with you on this relationship with money?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they can check me out at The Money Nerve. And that's nerve, not nerd. I may be a money nerd, but I'm also, it's themoneynerve.com. And they can reach me via email. I've got an online course called Mastering the Emotions of Money that basically takes them through a 12-week program of exploring all those different aspects. And people can reach out to me. Some people reach out to me. I help them with their taxes, and via Zoom makes that pretty easy. We do a lot of entertainment and international tax, but they can reach out through The Money Nerve, and we always reach back out. I have a great team of people. And for me, it's really, my whole goal has been the whole time is let's just get these conversations started around money and letting go of our money shame.
I really like that. And we'll definitely put all your contact information down the show notes so everyone can reach out to you. One thing that stood out to me is, being a CPA virtually means like you can work wherever you want. It's like you can live in a state and you're like, oh yeah, I'll work your taxes over there. But I guess
there might be some regulation on that though, right? I don't know if you could do that.
Well, California tried it. They were going to make, if you didn't have a certificate in California, they were going to kick everybody out. And then all the other states said, yeah, we think we'll do that too. And California, never mind. I'm certified in New York and California because I work with a lot of entertainment people, and those are the 2 states that I deal with mostly. Sure. But then we do a lot of international, and I work with, accountants in Canada and accountants in England. I'm not doing a Canadian tax return.
Sure.
But we can work together and get it all sorted out.
Oh, that makes sense. Well, Bob, we like to wrap up the show with asking our guests this with the idea of our, podcast, the title of our podcast, Actions and Limits. What would you say is one action that people can take to really make some change in their life, whether it's around, their relationship with money or not?
Well, I think the first action they can take is they can ask themselves, do I really want a different outcome? Do I want a different story than the one I'm currently living? And then start to get really curious about why they made the choices they did. So when I look at a situation that I'm in, I ask myself, what's the payoff? What's the negative pleasure I get from doing this? And what's it costing me? Like, it may feel good to be a victim, and yet I'm cutting my life short because I'm not feeling empowered.
Yeah, those are some definitely great questions to ask yourself. What's the payoff? What's the negative impact of what's going on? Whether it's a good or bad situation that you're putting yourself in. I think that's great questions to ask yourself. And we've all seen these limiting beliefs that we end up putting on ourselves. What would you say is the biggest limit that you see that people impose on themselves that needs to be removed?
I think the biggest thing people tell themselves is, I don't deserve it. There are other people that deserve it more. And I think once we can let go of that we all deserve it, that we're all born equally. I mean, I wasn't born at Buckingham Palace, unfortunately, but the reality is we all deserve it. And if we can get rid of that belief that I don't deserve to go for it, I think so many more people would be empowered to have the life they want.
Yeah, I think that's pretty powerful. It's almost like thinking would I ever tell, my best friend or a family member this, you don't deserve it. You're not worth it. No, right. You'd never tell someone else that. So why are you telling yourself that type of stuff? So I think that's some really great insight there, Bob. But thank you so much for joining us here on the Actions Limits podcast, Bob. It was great to have you. Definitely opened up, I think, some different thoughts around people's relationship with money. I don't think a lot of people think about that. So I think you gave us and our audience a lot to think about when it comes to money and how we deal with it.
Well, thanks. It's been great talking with you too. And I hope that somebody out there decides to go for it and have a different financial story. And thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks. Bob was such a great guest. I'm glad he could come on. Obviously, I had such a great sense of humor being the CFO of the comedy club. It was a very different topic, right? Thinking about that idea of your relationship with money. I don't think a lot of people think about that. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, a lot of people don't, but I was just thinking about this right now. What's the number one reason for divorce? Money. So there's your emotion right there. So it's very powerful. Money is a very powerful thing. And if we could harness it in a positive way, it could all serve us well in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it can be a way that we distract ourselves, whether we're spending too much money or we feel like it's burning a hole in our pocket, whatever that means. They show you all these memes, right? It's like, do you want to look rich? And they'll show all these people with gold chains and fancy cars, or do you want to be rich? And they show you Bill Gates just wearing a sweater and some loafers.
Yeah, I've seen that. Warren Buffett. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
they're dressed down because they're like, I don't need to act like I have money because I do. But a lot of people get in that mindset of saying hey, no, I need to pretend like I have some money because it means something. So
if you want to pursue something, pursue happiness. That should be your goal. I mean, if you pursue happiness, a lot of times the money will come because you're following your passions and you're passionate about it and you make it happen. But if you're just following the money, it will never be enough.
Yeah, and sometimes it's almost that validation that you receive from pretending like you do have money, and maybe so that people are seeking that validation. So I think we could have talked to Bob a lot longer and gotten deeper into those topics. That would be interesting to be a fly on the wall in some of his group group events when they're talking about money and the relationship behind money and how that, rears its ugly head. So
yeah, and giving that person the extra marshmallow.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to think about different ways to implement that with my daughter and to help her learn or have a healthier relationship with money. So hopefully I've already begun that process. But yeah, I'm glad that we could have Bob Wheeler on the show, and I think he shared a lot of great insight. Okay, let's wrap up the show with another question from Ask Paul Anything, our segment here. I did find I thought it was a good question to ask you. I feel like you're going to have a good answer for this one. This is from Lisa in California. It doesn't say where, but I know that's out with you, Paul. It says, Paul, is a hot dog a sandwich? Why or why not?
Well, since I've worked at Coke Corner on Main Street at Disneyland making hot dogs, I will tell you it is not a sandwich. Okay, it doesn't have bread; it's a bun. Okay, and there's a wiener in it, so therefore it is a hot dog. It is a separate category. It's not a sandwich. It is a hot dog. So no, they're two different things. You cannot change my mind.
So just because it's a bun, it doesn't count as bread. Is that?
It doesn't count as bread. Nope, it's a bun.
So what about a hamburger bun? Can you make a sandwich with a hamburger?
No, a hamburger is not a sandwich either. It's a hamburger. It's not a sandwich.
Well, glad we got to wrap up the show with a fun question. So. Everyone, a hot dog is not a sandwich, according to Paul Fortune.
Or a hamburger.
Or a hamburger. So continue to send your questions in, whatever they are, to actionsandlimits@gmail.com, and you can get your question featured on the show. Man, another great episode. Everyone out there, make sure to subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, all of the other podcast platforms. Great week, Paul.
Yes, for Justin Atherton, this is Paul Fortune. We'll see you next week.
All right. See you next Monday. Thank you for listening to the show. Don't miss an episode. Click and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform and find us on Instagram and Facebook under Actions and Limits to stay updated on all our upcoming content. Continue to email the show at actionsandlimits@gmail.com for our segment Ask Paul Anything. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.